we are now introducing Dave Klein. And Dave is here to talk about, what are you here to talk about, Dave? I got to pull up the agenda. When VLANs and something fail, I do remember that.
So in firewalls and traditional segmentation, so firewalls, security groups, and clouds, and VLANs, things like that, when they fail, the era of software-defined segmentation or software-based segmentation. We're going to talk about that today.
Right. Don't you love how the cloud vendors have just thrown in new terminology for us, basically renaming what is really just a VLAN in the back end?
Exactly, it's renaming, and at the same time, you have all these efficiencies in the cloud, and those efficiencies have been brought to the premises too, right? You have all sorts of ways of DevOps of provisioning things quickly and auto scaling. But yet they come up with security groups, which is basically VLANs, which is not granular enough, arduous, and things like that. So we're going to talk about that a bit today, which should be fun.
That's really fun, isn't it? Hey, before I let you go into it, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into this industry, and tell us a quick story.
So I'm Dave Klein. I've been in the industry for about 20 years, and I've had a really good time. Worked at a lot of different companies, and with both the private sector and with the U.S. federal government customers. A lot of incident response work, which I really enjoy. One of my favorite things to do. And for me, I'm all about helping people succeed. Right? The industry kind of is negative. A lot of times, it's all these terrible stories of failure and things like that. I like to track people the winners, right? The winners. And often it's not very different, right? The people who are winning are going after low-hanging fruit. They're starting to. They're not complete. They're humble, and they have incident response plans, and they work with not only the technical staff, but they socialize with the business guys and the executive staff. And it's just I kind of find it fun. I kind of really enjoy it very much. So it's the kind of thing I do. Yeah. Excellent.
Very good, sir. Well, look, I've made you presenter. So let's. You've got 30 minutes for the remainder of lunch. So I'll get off the screen and have at it, Dave, and enjoy.
Perfect. Hello, everyone. I'm Dave Klein, Senior Director of Engineering Architecture at Guardicore. And again, as I mentioned in the conversation, we're going to talk about. Oh, the change here. Wait, we go back here. There we go. Because can you guys see my screen? Okay. Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
We got you, Davey. Yep.
Perfect. So we're going to talk about new ways of doing software-defined segmentation, software-based segmentation, when traditional firewalls and traditional segmentation methods aren't working very well. So I just talked about this a bit. I'm in the industry for over 20 years. I did a lot of work after 9/11 in the New York City area, 10 years of U.S. federal work, a lot of incident response work. And you can follow me on CyberCaffeinate on Twitter. So I'm from Guardicore, and what we deal with is software-defined segmentation. So from a single pane of glass, I know that's a IT buzzword bingo game, single pane of glass, but from one kind of window, you're able, in an agnostic fashion, see everything across your entire enterprise, from your legacy AS400s, Unix machines, through to bare metal virtualizations, into the cloud, into containers, and even serverless. So the idea from a single pane of glass, a single policy set across all these things, do infrastructure agnostic segmentation, the network changes. It really accelerates your ability to do segmentation with zero downtime, and it's future ready, which means you're not tied into a certain platform. You're able to move where you need to move. So Guardicore comes with a big heritage of not only our software-defined segmentation solution called Centra, but we have Guardicore Labs, and they've done a lot of cool work for the industry. Everything from finding vulnerabilities in VMware to following botnet campaigns and ransomware campaigns. And also, and this is the free part of Guardicore, we have a free tool called Infection Monkey. It's free, it's safe, it's open source, it's on GitHub. It's an attack simulation tool that really works across all your modern platforms and environments, and allows you to see how lateral movement works across your data center and clouds and premises, and gives you prescriptive results. So I highly encourage you to go check out Infection Monkey and try it in your environment to understand how lateral movement works. And basically, in a nutshell, the reason why things have changed in the world is the modern enterprise is different than what it used to be. Your business that views IT as something that gives accelerated delivery, gives competitive differentiation, provides efficiencies, savings, and integration access. That last one is the idea that you're in your environment, you'll have your vendors, your suppliers, your contractors, your customers. The idea you're all interconnected, and often the weakest link is not you, but your HVAC vendor who's in your system to manage things, right? So that business makes these demands, and IT has delivered through DevOps and cloud model. The idea is they found ways in the environment to simplify solutions that are platform agnostic. They have playbooks and scripting and other things that work across all the different platforms in an automated, auto-scale fashion. And so, in essence, I say it's a cloud model. And even if you're not in the cloud yet, the idea is even how you deal with things on premises is this accelerated, fast, automated fashion. And we call this the impossible triangle. Why? It's an optical illusion. The top point looks farther away. Looks like it's elusive. So you have, business demanding speed, innovation, and IT delivering. But where does security come into play? I'm sorry, I went the wrong way. Where does security come into play, right? Is it farther away or is it achievable? And the answer is it is achievable. And the idea is for security solutions to be successful today, they have to change what they do. They can't be the way they used to be, right? You can't drive a horse and buggy on a superhighway these days, right? So you have to mimic what people are doing, the business side and the DevOps cloud model side, by finding security solutions, and more than what we're talking about today, by the way, that are simplified, that work across all your platforms in an agnostic fashion, that are accelerated, that are DevOps friendly. You can do playbooks and script, and they're very scriptable to make them automated, to give you the visibility you need, to have the granularity of enforcement you need, done once, done right. So the idea is that's kind of what is needed to be successful today in enterprise. So with this new model, accelerated, fast, DevOps friendly, how can we learn from the past? Why are we here? Why is it different? Why is traditional cybersecurity like that horse and buggy on a superhighway? Well, the first things first, with all three of what I call the areas of where you used to see traditional segmentation, the problem is they're not fast, they're not DevOps friendly, they're not automatable, they don't work across the entire environment, they don't provide you the visibility you need, they're not granular enough, and you don't do one method, you have many methods. And for example, if you look at traditional segmentation, on premises, I'm talking about VLANs, ACLs, and firewalls, and the clouds, security groups. The problem is there are multiple techniques. It's very confusing. They have to be combined, and it makes it difficult. It makes it management nightmare, right? Provides zero visibility and a lack of granularity. For example, you see here on the screen, you can't say, hey, I have this Nginx proxy. It needs to talk to a backend web process, but I don't want any other process to talk to that web service, right? You can't do it by process, nor by identity. Today you think about jump boxes, and that's what we see in the graphic over here. You see Allison and Diane. They both are using PuTTY on the same jump box, but Allison can only go to accounting. Diane can only go to diagnostics. Now, how do you lock them down? By process and by user. With traditional segmentation, you can't. And finally, as everything is auto-scaled today, you have DevOps people and other people who need to get to certain resources, and you want to do it by fully qualified domain name because those resources are auto-scaled, right? So there's no policy by fully qualified domain name. So traditional segmentation is a real problem in a management nightmare sense, from a visibility perspective, and also from a lack of granularity. On top of that, one of the biggest things we see that people want to segment today is be able to have policy deny lists or blacklists, right? Be able to say things like, hey, listen, I have clear text protocols like FTP, Telnet, and TFTP. They're not allowed in my environment. Wherever that process occurs, I don't care what port number or anything, wherever it occurs, block it. I have a web proxy, so if someone's trying to go to the internet anywhere without going through the proxy, stop it. And hey, don't log in the boxes as root. We have to get in the box and then do a pseudo user to elevate it. These are not possible with traditional segmentation. And then firewalls in themselves also have a lot of other problems too. They're perimeter devices. Even when they're applied to data centers and even clouds, they're in the front of it. They're not throughout. And the thing is, you have to follow the workload today. You need to be everywhere to be successful. And with firewalls, it's just not possible. So let's talk about software-defined segmentation. So number one, it's also known as micro-segmentation or software-based segmentation. And the idea is we're not talking about a very finite use case. We're talking about a use case that goes across a number of different use cases. And the strategy is, with most things, you start with low-hanging fruit. You find what matters most, what will make the biggest difference, and you work out from there. So number one, we have digital crown jewels protection. We find customers doing software-defined segmentation to protect medical devices that can't be patched, point-of-sale systems that can't be patched, to protect against from production environment from being affected by user and development environments. Internet of Things. So we have all sorts of building controls and other things that are part of a connected enterprise. How do we protect them from other parts of the enterprise and other parts of the networks? Protecting legacy operating systems. We talked about medical devices and point-of-sale systems, often running Windows 7 or Windows XP. How do you protect them in an environment where things need to be segmented? And then also between the tiers of an application. We see software-defined segmentation mentioned in most standards today, from PCI to SWIFT to HIPAA to GDPR. They talk about the need to find those critical resources and isolate them from other ones. In data center transformation, from mergers, acquisitions, cloud migration, hybrid cloud integration, this stuff is also where segmentation appears. And also with zero trust. And with zero trust, I have a great video that you can go see. You can Google this, that talks about how segmentation plays in the zero trust and micro perimeters and protecting the workflows, and even showing how you use that free tool, Infection Monkey and Guardicore Central, to show how it makes a big difference. So go ahead and take a look at that when you get a chance. So who's involved in software-defined segmentation, also known as software-based segmentation? So you have the CISO, security executives, the infrastructure people, and the DevOps. And what I find is, while these projects usually start in infrastructure or the security side of the house, you are involving the DevOps person as well. Because again, the way that you see efficiencies here is they automate it, pushed out in their playbooks. And in fact, all three are involved with the project, even though it might start on the left-hand side. And what are the steps? Generally, it's a 5-step process. You work with a customer, you visualize and map out their environment, you label different things, you define policies, you then monitor and find what you're doing, then you enforce, and you go back again. Because again, you start with low-hanging fruit, and you go through those steps as time goes by. So what should a solution include? To be successful as a software-based segmentation solution, you need the following things. You need the widest possible platform support. What I find is most of my customers are running everything from very much like bare metal servers, hypervisors, clouds, containers, serverless. So you need to work across all those platforms seamlessly. So you don't want something that's platform specific. You want it to be agnostic, that works across all those things. You want to be able to integrate all the metadata that you have from your various environments. So for example, here you see a vSphere environment, and you can see an asset name, what host it's on, what its IP addresses are, what processes are running. And the key is AWS. You see what security groups, which AWS instance it is, what image name. If it's containers like OpenShift and Kubernetes, you have everything from what is the container host, the namespace, node name, host IP. These are all critical because when you pull up these maps, you want to be able to pull in those additional bits of information so you know what things are. On top of that, you want the broadest operating system support, not just platform support, but operating system, including a lot of your legacy. What we find is often segmentation is not only on your bleeding edge, but also taking care of that legacy, those legacy systems. The 2003 server you can't patch anymore. That's no longer, it's end of life, but you still need to use it for a few more months, and you need to visualize it to be able to move things off of it. You have to protect it. Unix is a good example, AIX, Solaris, as well as AS400s and mainframes. The idea is you want to be able to go across the entire group of operating systems to be able to segment. And then finally, in software-defined segmentation, you also want your own firewall. Now, let me explain this. A lot of software-based segmentation companies use Windows Firewall and Linux IP tables. Well, the challenge here, IP tables is layer 4, so it's IP address and port. It's not process, user, and fully qualified domain name. In Windows, if you're using a legacy operating system that's no longer supported, the firewall is not supported. So that's a challenge, right? So you need to have granularity that works across all these different platforms seamlessly, so you need your own firewall. On top of that, your own firewall allows you to blacklist. We talked about the importance of doing this, and there's no contention for administrators. If you're using IP tables or Windows Firewall, the admin can log in, the root can log in and change your rules. So if you have your own firewall, that's not going to happen. The final thing you see, the little chart and graph at the bottom, is because in case of Guardicore Central, we have our own firewall. It was done recently. The latency is so less than even IP tables, native IP tables, and native Windows Firewall. So those are some of the key elements for software-based segmentation solution. There's some more things. You really need visibility. You need to start with visibility. The idea is you need to be able to see things in real time and historically across your entire workflows. It allows you to easily create and apply labels, so understand application dependencies. It allows you to sort in a variety of ways that people want to see the enterprise. For example, by sorting, For example, I might be an engineer who wants to look at AWS versus my other platforms. Or I may be a case of a production person wanting to prevent development access to the production environment. Or I could be a compliance officer. I have PCI items that I want to separate and isolate from the non-PCI items. Having that visibility and be able to do things in that manner makes it an easy way to segment environments. And you need a flexible labeling schema. For example, here you see an environment that includes vSphere and also containers. The idea of being able to visualize this on one screen and see it the way I want to see it is really kind of critical. On top of that, the idea of being able to do this flexible labeling and things like this, it makes it dynamic. The idea is there's no need for manual moves, add changes, deletes. Things are very easily updated in an automatic fashion, either through the UI, through DevOps scripting, what have you. So the idea is you're not being stuck doing moves, add changes, deletes. Things are automatic. On top of that, you want something that allows you to go from the visibility directly to a policy. So here you see a 3-tier application, and you see it's locked down at the process layer. So the idea of going from the web service to backend MongoDB, the proxy to the web service, it's locked down at the greatest way possible. And the best part was all you did was open this map and it told you exactly what was underlying that. And finally, you want a great REST API set. A lot of people have additional sources of data like CMDB and other things they want to push into this environment, as well as vulnerability assessment. They would push in vulnerability assessment into the tool. This is a way to automate. So having a good REST API set is important. So I'm going to end with a great use case story. So we have a top 5 global bank that works with us, and we approached them, and they said, you know what? We think you can help us on one of the 4 main things that we're worried about, but we're not sure. So they had really 4 major use cases. And the irony is they said, these top ones are more important. We have to solve them now or this year. The one that we think you could help us with is this one down below. And we were like, well, hold on a second. What do we have going on here? So we talked to them. We turned out we could do all these 4 use cases for them immediately. So the idea was on these use cases, the first one, they had a situation where they had a production environment, a development, and a UAT environment. But they overlap VLANs. There were over 800 VLANs that overlapped. And there was an accidental transfer of money. Someone in development was trying to a money transfer and realized, oh my God, I'm in production. So the auditors came in and said, you got to change this right away. To change VLANs and IP addresses on tens of thousands of servers would have taken years. At 800 VLANs to separate them would have taken years. The beauty is we were able, with software-defined segmentation, with any VLAN or IP address changes using playbooks, push out agents to these thousands and thousands and thousands of workloads, mapped out 3 environments visually, and created a policy. And it took just a few weeks, not 2 years. So again, you have the speed, you have the granularity, and the ability to segment these 3 environments all within a matter of a few weeks. The other use case they had that was very interesting was they found out, in looking at that first use case they had, they audited their other environments, said, you know what? We put in all these great security cameras across the world, but they tie directly into our data center. We have users that can reach a data center. We have building controls and automations that can reach a data center, as well as network devices. So they needed to go ahead and segment these off to securely tie these down by process, by user, and isolate them from the data center. And we were able to do it again within the first year of deployment in a matter of weeks. And then there were other ones that were very similar that we were able to get done as well. So we were able to get done all 5 use cases, all in a matter of weeks within the first year versus taking 2 years to do it. The other thing was really important. I mentioned, one of the things you need for software-based segmentation is a good API set. We were able to take not 1 but 3 CMDB sets they had, pull them into our interface so we could see them. Plus, we had discovery, so we send stuff back their way. We had firewall rule sets, and one of the things they said is, you know what? If something's protected in the DMZ, that's a medium. If something's not protected to the world, that's a high. So we were able to decide the order and prioritization of policies by how exposed to the world they were. On top of that, we tied in their SIM, their monitoring systems, Active Directory, and then 2-factor authentication for all the administrative users and the ticketing system. So the key is the solution worked really well across all their environments and had a lot of speed, but also tied into their existing systems as well. And that's my presentation. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Dave. I really appreciate you spending time with us and giving Guardicore's view on that micro-segmentation. I think it's a really important topic, especially with the ever increasing nature of the control plane moving out into the cloud, and everybody's desire to need that kind of level of automation to secure their cloud stack technology. So it's fantastic. Thank you. Appreciate it very much.
Welcome.